Shalom, everyone. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Adi, for inviting me back for today's teaching and sit. I feel so excited, so blessed, and so privileged. Barachot habaot, barachim habaim. Welcome to all of you from all corners of the earth, all corners of the world. And what I would like to do in saying Boker Tov to some, good morning, Saharayim Tovim, good afternoon to others, Erev Tov to yet others, to bring us more together before I share what I hope will be a very inspiring teaching and then a guided sit leading into quietude. I would like to bring us all together by inviting you to share 3 cycles of breathing together, seeing that every inhalation is receiving the gift of Nishmat Chayim, receiving the gift of life. And then we hold and just gaze, hold the breath, and then gently and softly lean into that space and return the gift through our exhalation as we prepare to receive the next gift. It's as if the divine's exhale becomes our inhalation, and our exhalation becomes the divine's inhalation. So let's share 3 cycles together. I would also like to suggest to focus our attention, the first breath, on release, shichror in Hebrew. Just release. So much on our minds, on our hearts. Just release, let go. And then the second breath, the breath of nochachut, presence, bringing mind, body, heart, and soul present together. And then hitkashrut, connection, connecting those parts of us, those dimensions of us, within and then with each other, so we can really sense together in this virtual Zoom room that we really are together. Here we go. Toda, toda. I can really feel the change, the shift in the energy. So thank you. I'm going to share a teaching. It's about cultivating self-confidence, trusting in oneself. Bituchon atzmi in Hebrew. Rav Raz Hartman, contemporary rabbi in Yerushalayim and founder of the congregation Va'ani Tefillah here in Nachlaot, offers a profound teaching on trusting in oneself. In his article, Sacred Chutzpah, that's a term from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, Azut de Kedusha, Sacred Chutzpah, sacred audacity, published in 2014, based on Parshat Shalach, which is the Parsha this week, coming up to Shabbat. And you can read the Parsha in the book of Bamidbar in Numbers, chapters 13 through 15. He shares his acute observation that there is something deeply rooted, a fundamental matter, that without it, one's mahalach ruchani, one's spiritual life journey in general, is not able to succeed. And in an astonishing way, among many of us, this is tremendously lacking. In a strange and astounding way, most of the world does not urge the development of this essential principle, not in one's education, not among one's community, and not in one's life. Self-confidence and trusting in oneself, bitachon atzmi. We all need that. We all need to cultivate in today's world, yesterday's world, and most likely tomorrow's world. This includes the ability to know that there is something within me, within each one of you, of intrinsic value that is of the highest meaning, that my opinions, thoughts, and deeds are essential to who I am, that they are important at the very least as much as other people's. And this as well includes the strength to step forward in the way that appears to me to be correct, without looking behind me and making sure that everyone else is pleased. All of these are parts of this great matter that is referred to as self-confidence and trusting in oneself, and one's very inner life thirsts for it. Our soul, hanefesh hapenimit tzam'alo, there's a tzimaon. In its deepest depths, its root is emunah and bitachon, faith in the godly divine light that dwells within the individual. If in fact Hashem did create us, there is at least one point within us that knows more about each of us than the world in its entirety. Think about that. What's your one point? It doesn't have to be 10 points or 1,000 points. 1 point, that is you. There exists in each soul a new idea, an innovation, an illumination that the entire world needs and longs for. We need each other to manifest our inner nukudot, our inner unique points. In order to actually express this potential and to illuminate the world, a person must first believe in this very point. And I invite all of you to consider, do you believe that you possess this? And then to know it, and then to heed it. This inner trust, this belief in ourselves, is built and is strengthened for most of us when we encounter opposition. Imagine that someone would actually disagree with me. In these moments of difficulty and struggle, one's spiritual courage, ha'ometz hanishmati, and inner self-awareness is being tested. As this struggle becomes deeper and more refined, one needs to know, when should I heed to the opposition and when not? When to say, I made a mistake. You're right. And when to know to say, better that I am guilty of walking on my own path, being open-hearted to hold both. If we know how to navigate these moments with a true integration, with a shiluv of humility and self-confidence, we will increasingly grow the inner light that dwells within us, the organuz, the or hapenimi that is within each one of us, more and more. We will know in truth that we can, in fact, depend on ourselves. Well, what does that feel like? What would that feel like to be able to really depend on yourselves? Rav Raz continues, a major basis for this teaching is found within Parshat Shlach, specifically in the first 2 of the 3 chapters, 13 and 14. In its root, we find the story of the spies, a fundamental argument between Kalev, one of the 12 spies, and 10 other spies. Yehoshua was the 12th, and he was aligned with Kalev. The spies said concerning Eretz Yisrael that surely the land is good and special, but, and that was the mistake, but the people are powerful. We are not able to ascend to those people, for they are stronger than we. We were like grasshoppers in our eyes, and so we were in their eyes. Efes ki az ha'am hayoshev ba'aretz. Lo nuchal la'alot el ha'am, ki chazak hu mimenu. Vanehi be'einenu kagachavim, v'chein hayinu be'eineihem. And at that moment, they expressed in truth their reality, their truth. They perceived themselves as small in their own eyes and projected that onto the Canaanite people, projecting their own low self-esteem, which was their lack of self-confidence. Now, opposite that, where there was in fact a danger to deny the truth within their claim because they were the majority, stood Kalev. And he said something simple and to the point, lacking logic and lacking reasoning. I love this, is one of my favorite parts. Rather, notwithstanding that the spy's logic and facts may have indeed been true, he voiced with confidence, with bitachon atzmi, only his sense of his inner pristine truth. Rak emet penimit barura. Only what he felt he needed to say. And what did he need to say? In Pasuk Lamed, in chapter 13, verse 30, we shall surely ascend and conquer it. Why? For we can surely do it. Alo na'aleh v'yirashnu ota ki yachol nuchra ba. His inner knowledge within self-confidence sustains this fully when he proclaims, we can surely do it. Ki yachol nuchal la. The fundamental point, as mentioned earlier, is in his faith. It's in faith, emunah, bitachon, in the aspect of Hashem that is found within us, which nurtures our sense of identity and our inner steadfastness. He was projecting a healthy self-esteem and self-confidence. Within this context, there are 2 points we can extract from the story of Kalev that will shed light on our own spiritual paths and our spiritual practice. The first point is to give space. We don't have to do this all alone. We can't do this all alone. Give space for the Holy One, blessed be He, by asking God, by asking the divine within a question. The question is not as much, what is it that I want? But rather, what is the voice of Hashem in this matter? What am I being told? What am I being asked? What is being asked of me in this moment? Essentially, the individual must increase one's meditation and prayer in order to distinguish and grasp the particular way that connects to and resonates with one's faith in Hashem. And each one of us experiences this in our own unique way. The second point derives from the fact that there are matters that are so fundamental in life that in truth, there in that place, it is possible to pay attention only to our inner self-awareness, with honor, with kavod, with respect. With these important and essential matters in life, one's ultimate decision is able to come only from one's heart and soul. Interestingly enough, Kalev, who came from this place, in Hebrew, it's ka-lev, as the heart, lev. When on the scale stands our very faith, in these moments, one needs tremendous, what Rabbi Nachman refers to and what Rav Raz quoted, azut de kedusha, sacred chutzpah, sacred audacity to say, here I am unable to ask anyone else. This is the very root of my life. And this is the difference between azut de kedusha and, God forbid, azut panim, which is outright arrogance. And as with Kalev, in conclusion, this surely requires, what this requires is a ruach acheret, a different spirit, as referred to in Numbers 14:24, a strong and believing spirit, a spirit of true sacred audacity, accessing and encountering the spirit of Hashem that is within each one of us. We will now move into our practice together. And I will begin the practice once the gong goes off with a little bit of a guidance, and then we'll fall and we'll drop into silence. As we settle into the cycles of our breathing, receiving, holding, and returning, the Piasetzna Rebbe, who perished in the Shoah in 1943, teaches a practice that helps the individual gain greater self-confidence and self-trust through experiencing a deeper and more intimate awareness of the divine within one's own inner being. Practice this. I invite you to practice this. Envision yourself, sayeh ba'atzmacha, as already the ideal spiritual person you really are, the tzaddik that you are. Just imagine as you close your eyes and feel what it must feel like as you imagine the greatness of your soul. See through the lens of of perception, of spiritual perception. See how your soul shines in the divine garden, in Eden, in Gan Eden, as he, she, it comes to enjoy your company with the holy entourage. Meditate deeply on this visualization. See yourself that way. Yiscah v'hatmid b'machshava udimyon zeh neged einecha. Hold these images in your mind's eye. Inevitably, you will be aroused to that higher awareness and consciousness where you will begin to feel the blessing of self-confidence. And let's share that together in silence. In your very breathing, visualize your higher self, your ideal spiritual self. What does that feel like? Perhaps discover your own Kalev within you. And in our last few minutes together, I invite you to share this through the blessing practice of blessing those you love, blessing those you like, blessing those with whom, in one way or another, you have a relationship, you engage, blessing those that you may not really like, blessing those that you may not really love, and blessing those that you'd rather not, and bless those also with having the faith, that faith of higher self, to cultivate bitachon atzmi, so we can walk with more dignity, with humbled self-confidence, with more honor, and hold space for each other. Let's bless each other with that. Thank you. Thank you. Toda.
Toda, Yiscah. Friends, as always, we seal our practice of this beautiful Torah and meditation with Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish. And we invite those of you who are in mourning, or if you're observing a yard site, to share the name or names of those you're holding in your heart today in the chat box if you'd like, and to join me in rising in body or in spirit to share words of Kaddish. Gadal Kadash Shemei Rabbah Yama Divra Chilute V'Yamlich Malchute Chaye Chom V'Yamech Chaye Bechol Beit Yisrael Ha'adama Zman Karib Imu Amen Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach Olam Olameh Amaya
Yitrach, Yishtabach, Be'ikar, Be'itman, Be'itnaseh, Hadar, V'Yitaleh, V'Shemeh, B'Kudashah, B'Richu, Ilami, Kol Birhata, V'Shirata, V'Mishpahata, V'Ne'emata, Damiran, Be'oma, Yeheshmei, Rabba, Bavarach,
Shlama Rabba
Shama, Rabba, Min Shemaya,
Aim Aleinu
Emalenu, V'Yokol Yisrael,
Amen.
Baru Amen.
Oseh Shalom B'Mrama
Yaseh Shalom, Kol Yisrael,
Kol Yisrael, Amen.
Amen.
Friends, thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to thank our teacher for today, Yiscah Smith, joining us from Jerusalem. Those of you who are able and interested are welcome to stay on for a few minutes to extend our practice through some conversation about that beautiful teaching in connection with this week's Parsha, Shlach Lecha. And for those who are leaving us, we hope you'll join us tomorrow, same time at 12:30, or on Friday at the same time, 12:30, to sit into Shabbat. We thank again Brown Lee Paz for sponsoring our practice in memory of her mother-in-law, Shulamit Lee Paz, Zichronah Livracha. May her memory be a blessing. Thanks for being with us. For those who are leaving us now, we hope you stay safe and well for the rest of the day, and hope to see you again tomorrow for our practice at the same time. And if you have a question for Yiscah Smith about today's teaching, please put it in the chat box. Any comments you have, we'll try to keep an eye on that. Yiscah, thank you. That's just beautiful, and one of my favorite topics, and also, as you said, one of my favorite psukim, just one of my favorite verses. Alo na'aleh is all you need. Basically, loosely translated as "Yes, we can," and literally, we can definitely go up. We can do this. So
Yes.
there are a lot of great contemporary equivalents. Let's do this. Let's do this thing. Essentially, what Caleb and Joshua said. But I want to, and also this teaching beautifully built on the teaching last week. Rabbi Sam Fine-Smith led us in a week of practice that was essentially about understanding this as a practice of identifying as Sam puts it, Torah from the well, the Torah that wells up within us and express itself. And I think what you're adding to that is the idea of learning to trust that, right? Learning to trust the kol d'mama daka, and thinking like, well, I can't possibly be happening to me. Somebody else always knows more than I do. I can't trust that. So this idea of bitachon atzmi, trusting our reality, trusting our truth, trusting our experience, and then and doing so, with real strength, as you're describing it, which is the azut de kedusha, which is the whole, holy chutzpah, sacred chutzpah. Sometimes I call it holy boldness.
Holy boldness,
not just trusting. It's more than trusting it. It's really like embracing it, right? Strongly. However, you contrasted it with azut panim, which is basically arrogance, right? So here's my question. Can you tell the difference between, how does one tell the difference between arrogance and self-righteousness and, closing oneself off and holy boldness?
Such an important question. And I was hoping it would be asked, which is why I contrasted it in my own notes. It's not in the actual teaching, because there's a major difference. One involves moving aside a little and inviting the divine presence to guide us through this. The other is, it's all about me. It's all about the insecure, finite, coming from a space of scarcity. We all have that ego that thrives to survive. I don't know, it doesn't survive to thrive. I think it thrives to survive. And from that place, we're afraid to be wrong. We're afraid to make a mistake. So we pretend. We go out there in the world and look at me. I really know what I'm doing. And deep inside, we don't, because that's a lot to hold all by ourselves. Azut de Kedusha is making room for the divine presence so I can anchor myself with humility, combined with that ometz, that courage, because I'm not doing it alone, which is what I loved about Kalev. He said, Nuchal, we. Now, who's the we? It could be God and me, or all of us and God. But he didn't say I, he said we. So I'd say the difference, I'll regalachat to sum it up, the difference is between I and we.
That's really, I think that's great. And I think that's really true. This is really, it's a pivotal Torah portion, obviously, because this is actually, a lot of people, think, oh, it must be, the reason the generation that left Egypt doesn't make it to the land is the golden calf or, any of the other number of fetching episodes. But this is really kind of the nail in the coffin for that particular generation, is their failure to trust. And it's not just trust them, it's trust God, trust themselves, trust the process, trust their experience, because certainly getting to the land is no more amazing than how far they've already come, right? They can't really quite believe or trust what's happened so far, and so they can't really envision what that's going to be. So that's really powerful. That's really powerful. So maybe we can. So you, as you just put it, it's like there's trust in the group, the new, nuchal, that we can do it. Maybe if you don't mind being personal, I don't want to pry, but I think it's always helpful to hear, like, what's that experience like for you when you are sitting in meditation? Like, how do you experience when you are like sitting and your mind is wandering and you bring it back? And what are you what are you looking for? If that's a way you could describe it, like how does this manifest in your own meditation practice?
Wow. I wasn't expecting that question, but thank you for asking.
We don't rehearse these.
I know.
It's okay, and it's fine to say.
No,
I don't know. That's why we can work on it together. I'm just trying to. It's a question for myself too.
I sense that where I first go to is the first 3 breaths that I always start. Every class at Pardes, Applied Jewish Spirituality, every one-off lecture, every guided practice that I lead here in Conscious Community Nachlaot, it's as much because I need, as I sense everyone else needs, we need to cultivate the letting go, the release, because it could really clog it up. Could really, even if we want to have a wonderful, enlightening, clear sit, we all know, those of us who have been practicing for years, that doesn't always happen, and that's not even the goal. But at the very least, I would like to gently let go of distractions. And I in my mind, I visualize that I put them on a shelf and say, for the next 20 minutes, 45 minutes, 10 minutes, you're going to sit here and just wait patiently. I'll address you afterwards, rather than a violent demand that they leave. So that's the release. And then bringing in all the dimensions of my life, the different parts of me to be present, my intellectual capacities, my emotional outpouring, my body. I always make sure that I'm not thirsty, that I've already gone to the Shea routine, that I'm comfortable. I bring the body into that experience, and I sit, if I'm kneeling on a kneeling meditation bench or cross-legged or sitting on a chair, before I even begin, I make sure my body is okay. And then the third, which I think is what I really seek, is connection, because the connection that I'm seeking is mind, body, heart, and soul with the divine within me and the divine in you. So when I sit with groups in practice, whether I'm facilitating and guiding or as a participant, my hope is the same, that I leave feeling more connected than less. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really lovely. There's a question here from Lori, which is a really good one. I'm not sure that you mentioned the word Hineni, but would you please speak to the idea of Hineni showing up in full service of God and other humans versus another kind of Hineni, which is showing up to care deeply for oneself when it feels selfish to do so. So it goes to that question, the Caleb attitude, right, of self versus the group here. How do we know which Hineni we're saying when we're responding to the call?
It's very related. I see the word Hineni when it's a response to the divine call, to the Kol Dumamataka, that I'm acknowledging that, and I'm open to moving to that next step, not knowing where it's going to take me. Here I am. I'm being invited through the call of Hineni, and it's like Avraham, and it's like Moshe. If you see in the Tanakh, on the Chumash, when the word Hineni is used as a response, not a reaction,
right?
then it's a divine practice. It really is a divine practice. And I myself over the past 10, 12 years have heard that inner call that is asking me to call back Hineni. I think the other Hineni, in contrast, is the Hineni years ago, before I came into this type of compassionate, gentle, more of a non-judgmental space, where I was coming from more of a judgmental, severe, a more external based space. That other Hineni was, I don't want to be here. I feel that I have to, though, because that's part of survival. And it's more of a reaction than a response, and it's more of a survival, and it does beckon compassion and empathy, and I think it's part of the human experience as well.
Yeah, I want to thank you also for the beautiful, the visualization of each person's neshama, each person's soul, which helped me as we were sitting. And I guess, I'm always interested in not oversimplifying, but trying to make it as accessible as possible. And I think the premise of this practice, as we're engaging in it, is, as you said, to put the distractions on the shelf. The premise, and everyone has to try it out in their own experience to see if this is true. If we put the distractions on the shelf, and if we can still ourselves enough, and if we can adopt a stance of asking questions instead of having answers, the premise is that the truth will arise. And so the question is, can we trust that? Can we trust that the truth, not that we will come up with the answers, but that the answers will present themselves to us as we need them? Can we trust that? And maybe to some extent, Yiscah, this occurring to me is that, doesn't mean we're right? A part of Azuta Kedusha, that holy boldness, is like, you could say something and think you could be absolutely convinced. And then, you could find out 10 seconds later, I missed the mark on that. I didn't have it right. And that's maybe if we allow for error, right? At this moment, this seems to be what I'm hearing. Okay. But I'm a human being. And of course I can never be a perfect clay kodesh. I cannot be a perfect vessel for the divine.
We're not commanded to be perfect.
Right.
We're commanded to heal brokenness. We're commanded to do the tikkun, and to move through the process, as the Piasetzna teaches us, of moving from a place of distance to a place of nearness. Does that mean I'll never make a mistake? Of course not. Does it mean I will always have the answers? More likely than not, no. And actually, I have found in my life experience that the people who have more self-confidence are more readily able to say, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. That's okay. It's the people who don't have the self-confidence, when their entire identity is wrapped up in this one decision. It's a lot of pressure to have to be right with. So approaching nearness to the divine within me has its ups and its downs. There are feelings of joy, there are feelings of suffering, and they all lead to the same place if, in fact, again, I respond rather than react.
Beautiful. I've been reading a book about the Gettysburg Address and Lincoln, and I'm struck not by the Gettysburg Address, but by the second inaugural. Lincoln writes about, with firmness in the right. He begins with malice towards none, with charity for all. With firmness in the right. In other words, I really think about this as holy boldness. Firmness in the right. And then he continues, as God gives us to see the right. So it builds in a little then he continues in the collective plural, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds. So it combines a lot of what you're talking about, of it's not about him, it's about the collective. And it's about holy boldness. I mean, there's enormous strength and trust in it, and it's tempered by, as with the awareness, as God gives us to see the right.
Yes.
So, brings tears to my eyes every single time. Never fails. That's also for me, that's a good clue. Like, okay, the reception is clearer than usual when that happens. We might know when the tears arise, and we know we can recognize this as really a bit of Torah. So thank you for reminding us too that each of us carries our own unique piece of Torah to contribute, to trust in that, more than that, to bring it into the world. Thanks for modeling it, Yiscah, in your life and in your work. May we all merit to sit. Where would we be? In the courtyard, in your courtyard? Where do we gather? Where's your conscious community in Nachlaot?
In this beautiful sacred garden that I tend to every day.
All right.
I have a very large, it's exceptional, especially for Nachlaot. It's an amazing garden, and it just brings out the best of everybody. And we chant. We also chant, by the way. We do. I have a chant.
You don't have to gild the lily here. Okay, we're convinced. We're there. We'll get there.
And we have a kiddush
you had me at the garden. Okay.
Okay.
And kiddush and the chant. Okay. Bronwyn Lee Paz, thank you so much for sponsoring today. Thanks everyone for being here. Tomorrow be led by Emily, the wonderful Emily Hertzlin, joining us. Friday by Rabbi Sheila Peltz-Weinberg, as we go back to our wonderful rotation of amazing teachers from all over. Yiscah, thank you so much for the gift of your teaching and Torah. Go ahead.
And if anyone wants to keep in touch with me through my website. Yeah.
Oh, let me, sorry. Ooh, I lost it. It's just Yiscah
www.yiscahsmith.com. Podcast and email is there. Yeah.
All right. Let's give a minute there. And yes, thanks, Lori. Happy Pride to everyone. The month of June. And I don't know if Marion Ross is on today, but I have my Rumi calendar that I was given. And we're in the month of June. And since I wasn't here yesterday, the line from the guest house for the month of June is, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of furniture, comma, that's a line. Welcome them in, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture.
Gosh.
Okay, everyone, be well. Any blessings? And hope to see you tomorrow. Yiscah, toda,
Thank
toda.
you.